Hey, so I'm in Beacon Hill Park right now in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And in this video, I'll be talking to you about how I traveled the world without a cell phone. So I actually didn't get a smartphone. I didn't actually own a smartphone until January of last year. So I grew up and went to university and did my first two big trips without using a smartphone at all. I went through Central and South America as well as Southeast Asia without a smartphone. I think that there are some advantages to the fact that I didn't have a smartphone until I was a bit older, especially in terms of my ability to focus without being distracted by my phone. But there are some disadvantages as well, particularly in that I'm not very knowledgeable about all the applications, all the technology that are associated with smartphones, and I'm just having to learn all that in my mid-20s, my late 20s. When I did travel with my smartphone, there were a couple different things I did. A lot of different things I did to make it work. Of course, it's definitely more difficult, especially in terms of the fact that you can't really book accommodation ahead of time. I'm assuming you're not on a tour. I guess you could go on a organized tour and then they'll take care of the accommodation for you. But number one, you can't book accommodation ahead of time. You might have you probably won't have the best maps, or maybe not have a map at all of the cities or places that you go to. And you can't take Uber around. But these are just some of the difficulties. It's also more difficult to research specific things. So in order to overcome some of these issues of traveling without a smartphone, I definitely recommend getting a guidebook. Now, some people actually travel without a guidebook or a smartphone, and you can do that, but it will make it more difficult. I always use Lonely Planet because I understood their layout, and also I found that there were two parts of the Lonely Planet book that were really, really useful for every city and every area. The first one is the Get In, Get Out section, which basically details what time buses, trains, ferries leave, and where to catch them, which companies to go with, and how much it costs. Of course, anytime you're using a guidebook, you need to make sure that it's up to date. So ideally, less than 2 to 3 years old. If Lonely Planet hasn't updated their edition for whichever country you're going to, use a different guidebook. Some people prefer the other ones. I definitely like the layout of Lonely Planet. So I always use the Get In, Get Out, the Get In, Get Out. The other thing that I used all the time was the map of the area. Especially when I first arrived, I would look to see where all the budget hostels and guest houses are, and I would just walk to that area. I want to note though, do not go to the recommended guest houses, the guest houses Lonely Planet recommends. They're almost always overpriced or overbooked. Just check the guidebook, figure out what area has all the cheap guest houses and hostels, and then just walk into places that aren't listed online and places that aren't listed in the guidebook. I mean, actually, when I was traveling without a smartphone, I didn't have a tablet or a computer. I actually travel with a computer now, a laptop, But back then I didn't have any of that, so I didn't even check things online. I would just I would just get myself to that part of the city, and I'd always arrive during daytime. Keep this in mind. Do not, you really don't want to arrive at night if you can possibly help it, if you're traveling without a smartphone. Because what you're going to do is you're going to arrive in this area, you're going to walk around, go to maybe 5, 10, 20 different hostels and guest houses, check out the rooms, use your instincts, try to negotiate the price down, and then find a place that you want to stay in. Nowadays, I usually just book ahead of time on Airbnb. The other thing to keep in mind when you're traveling without a smartphone is you're going to want to meet a lot of people. Hostels are good for this. You can meet a lot of other travelers. You also want to befriend a lot of local people and just gather information from them, right? So don't take everything they say literally. Just kind of read in between the lines, understand their character, and then accumulate some general knowledge of the area after meeting quite a few different people. Because you're not really going to be able to do a lot of research online, you're going to be accumulating a lot of your information through the people that you meet. The next thing you want to do is you really want to become comfortable relying on your basic instincts and your gut. Because when you arrive in a new area, there's going to be really a lot of information, and you're not really going to be able to make well thought out decisions. You're going to have to rely on your gut more than anything else. Especially when you meet someone new and you're trying to establish whether they're trying to rip you off or take advantage of you somehow. This is really when your gut, and also just general danger. Of course, if you're going to a part of the world that's not particularly dangerous, I mean, parts of Asia, Europe, it might not be as critical that you really become familiar with your gut instincts. But if you're going to maybe South America, Africa, even Southeast Asia, even parts of Europe, even really anywhere, if you're a foreigner, someone might try to target you. No matter how safe the area, even if you're coming to Canada, I mean, if you're a foreigner and you look like a target, someone might be coming after you. I actually wrote a much more thorough blog post on this topic. I've put the link in the description. In this post, I go into way more detail about traveling without a cell phone, the advantages, the disadvantages, different strategies to use. So if you found this video interesting at all, go check that out. Also, I'll be posting a video like this once a week, or at least once a week. So subscribe and hit the notification bell.